Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on great radio stations across our wonderful, great state of Michigan. So glad to have you along with us, and so glad to be back in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Now, I know there was not a break in radio shows. You're like, well, Avery, you've been here every week. Yes, that's the magic of radio. I actually wasn't here last week. I was in Florida. More on that in just a minute. But I've got to ask you, now that it is officially springtime, how's that all working out for you? How is springtime working out for you? As many of our friends, many of our listeners, especially in the northern part of the state, probably as you're hearing this radio show, have just finally dug out from the storm of a century, storm of a lifetime, a massive late winter blizzard. Many of my friends in the UP who have lived there their entire lives say they've never seen anything like it. Absolutely crazy. But it's springtime now, so it's going to start getting better. So, yeah, there was a massive snowstorm, then ice, and then snow. And, of course, the question is in the UP, how will this affect the 10 deer that are left in the UP? I'm exaggerating here. I made a bad joke. But and we'll talk about that later in the show as DNR wildlife biologist Brian Roell joins us to get a feel for what the impact from this late winter massive snowstorm could be. Now, we got a little bit of a break in the weather, we being my wife Denise and I, and son James and daughter-in-law Jess, went down to Florida to watch my granddaughter Addison play softball. And it was an absolutely wonderful experience to see her play at the next level, to watch this higher level of play. And there were college teams down there from all across the country. There were hundreds of teams down there playing on a lot of different fields, a lot of driving back and forth between fields, but it was a great experience. But I have decided that as much as Florida is a nice place to visit, I have confirmed my commitment to my statement that I will never, ever, ever move to Florida. When we got down there and got off the plane, it was like we had walked into an oven. I thought, uh-oh. We'd been warned that it was going to be warm, hot down there that week, but we happened to hit a record-breaking week. My head, as I'm here in the studio right now, a week later, my head is still peeling. My forehead is still peeling. My earlobes are still peeling. That's a different level of heat down there. And, of course, when you're at the ball field, there's no way. There's no way to get out of the sun. And all of the outfield fences, I don't know why they do this. I wish they wouldn't. All of the outfield fences had barriers up, so you couldn't sit in the outfield. Sometimes there's some shade trees in the outfield, and you can sit out there and watch the game. No, they made us watch the game from by the dugout and by home plate, and it was I've spent a lot of time outdoors in the summertime, a lot of time outdoors on the water, but our Michigan sun cannot compare to what they have down there. And nice place to visit, but I certainly do not want to live there, and I will never live there. But the next time I go to Florida, I'm going to have one of those goofy, big, floppy, broad-brimmed hats that I used to kind of look at and go, oh, that's kind of goofy. Well, it might be goofy, but I know why people wear them now, so next time I will. Getting back to Michigan here, I have my springtime Michigan turkey tag. Well, I have my turkey license. I went online, and I almost said I applied for it. I went online, and I got ZZ, Southern Michigan Private Land Hunt. It starts April 18th, which is less than a month away now as you're hearing this show. Less than a month away. Goes through the entire month of May. I mean, it's basically a 6-week season. How can you pass on that? I don't know yet if I actually got an e-tag, an electronic tag, or if they're going to send me a tag. And the reason for my confusion is I thought that my deer tags were going to be e-tags, electronic tags. I got those online, and I wanted to experience what it was like to tag an animal electronically here in Michigan. I've never done that before because we've never had the option. And I thought I was getting an e-tag. But in the mail, a few days later, I get an envelope from the DNR, and I thought, oh, I think those are my deer tags. And they are. So hopefully my turkey tag is an electronic tag so I can see what that's all about. And here's something, a question I'm throwing out, and maybe you know the answer. I don't know the answer yet. If you have physical tags, paper tags, can you still tag an animal electronically, or do you have to use the paper tag? I don't know. We'll find out. I'll do a little research. Maybe you can answer that for me. If you have the answers, send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's the best way to get in touch with me for anything, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Okay, it's been a while since our big Trinity Monitor wild game dinner and auction, but I have not been here in the studio to talk to you about that. It was a huge success. It was a wonderful success, but I want to thank you for helping to make that happen. Well, first of all, thanks to God, because God has truly blessed that event. But I also want to thank you for your support of that event. Many of you donated auction items. You bid on silent auction items. You were there to help support us, and I appreciate that so very much. At one point in the evening, we did a selfie with me and the folks who were there who watch Wednesday Night Live. That was a lot of fun. I posted that picture. It turned out great. You can go to my Facebook page and you can see that. You might have to scroll down the page a little bit, but it's there. So thank you to everybody who turned out for the Trinity event. I do certainly appreciate it. I had another event following Saturday. In fact, I came home early from Florida for this event. I had been asked to attend and speak briefly at the Reese Adventure Club, obviously in Reese. I had no idea what this was about. I had been asked last year. I had to turn down Bob Hughes, the guy who asked me, because I just couldn't make it. Bob asked me to come this year. I said I'd be happy to. Well, this is before I realized I wasn't going to be in town. So we came back early because if I make a commitment to an event, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to be at that event. There have been very few times in my career that I've actually had to cancel being somewhere, and I just don't like it. I'll tell you what, though. The folks at the Reese Adventure Club, they put on a first-class event. It was outstanding. Packed house, raised a lot of money, and all of the money they raise is to get kids involved in the outdoors. I don't think there are very few higher causes in the world today, in my opinion, than getting kids involved in the outdoors. So congrats to those folks on that. Wednesday Night Live, a couple of Wednesday Night Live events. Now, we have one coming up at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. That is April 15th, tax day. Easy one to remember. April 15th at the Lumberjack Lodge in West Branch, 989-343-0892 for reservations. 989-343-0892 for reservations. If for some reason you didn't write that number down or you don't remember it or you have a problem, send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and I will get you hooked up. I'll make sure you get the reservations. I'm not buying your dinner, but I'll make sure that you have reservations for that event. Also on Wednesday Night Live, and we're kind of late this year because we did some time shifting and then I was gone. But we have kicked off the Ham for the Holidays program with our friends from Michigan Brand Meats, and now through Easter, and Easter's coming up pretty fast now, but now through Easter on every Wednesday Night Live, we will give away a ham, a Michigan brand ham for the holidays. All you have to do is tune in, and we will pick a winner every night. So I'm glad to be able to get going with that again. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show, actually, as I look at the rundown, it's a busy show this week. My first guest will be Mark Tonello. Mark is a Michigan DNR fisheries biologist, and he's talking about the upcoming walleye egg take operation on the Muskegon River. Then Matt Lefler from the Reese Adventure Club talks about that group and why they're so dedicated to raising money to get kids involved in the outdoors. Frankin Hayes then joins me. He is with the Michigan Wildlife Council, talking about the Here for Generations campaign. In hour number 2, Bob Hinds of Central Coast Angling talks about springtime burbot fishing and more, although Bob couldn't get on the water the last several days because of the snow and ice. And then this is very interesting. Brian Roell, DNR wildlife biologist, on how the late winter snowstorm and the winter in general could affect UP whitetails, the 10 deer that are left in the UP. And then in our third hour, let's talk springtime. Let's talk a little springtime turkey hunting with Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors, and we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine Radio. There's a podcast version of. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. So glad you're along with us. Stick around. We got 3 hours talking about the outdoors coming up. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe, WSJM 94.9 FM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux, WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your mid-Michigan Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Of course, Linwood Beach, known for being a gateway to world-class walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay. I have been an observer and a participant of the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery for many, many years. There were a lot of times when I followed the DNR crews up in the Tittabawassee River to watch them take eggs, to gather eggs. It's an interesting, fascinating process. But they also do that. On the Muskegon River. Mark Tonello is a DNR fisheries biologist who is intimately involved in that process, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Mark, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here.
Well, listen, it's a real pleasure to have you here. You haven't started taking eggs there yet, but you will soon.
That's correct. Yep. Next week, we typically do an exploratory run, shocking run on the river. Either like that last week of early in that last week of March. I think we're planning on doing it the 24th. And that will let us know how many walleye are in the river and how ripe they are. Because those are two, obviously, big factors. Having the walleye there is important, and then they've got to be ripe or they won't give us the eggs that we need.
So what's your window of opportunity? How long do you have to get this done before, the fish have to be ripe, but then you got to get them before they drop back down? How long of a period is that?
Not a lot. A couple of weeks, plenty for us to do it. But yeah, a couple of weeks. I think most of the walleye spawning typically takes place like that last week of March, and then, maybe into the second week of April. And by then we start seeing a bunch of spent fish. And, when we start seeing the spent fish, the spent females, that's our signal that, our window is closing. So we try to get in there early and, make sure we're keeping tabs on it so we don't miss it.
What's the magic water temp you're looking for, Mark?
I'm not sure. Probably
only the fish know.
Yes, the fish know. Probably into the low 40s is my guess.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different things that go into it. Water temperature is one. Flow obviously is another, because that brings them into the river. Photo period, though, which means day length, that's another cue that the walleye follow to get them to run and then get ready to spawn. So it isn't just water temperature, but it's a number of different things.
Gotcha.
And we, again, we want our hands on the fish. We don't want to go just by water temperature, which is why our crew will be out there next week doing some shocking. It's
a fascinating process to watch. I can only imagine what it's like to get your hands on those big fish. Walk us through. What do you do? What do your crews actually do?
Yeah, so what we do is we're on the Muskegon River below Croton Dam, and we work there's a 1 mile reach of river that's between Croton Dam and there's the Pine Street DNR access site. It's about a 1 mile stretch, and we have a big 18-foot flat bottom boat that has electrodes that hang off the front of it. And so we are putting electricity into the water. We're shocking the fish, and what it does is it stuns them temporarily, and they pop up, and that allows us to net them. We put them in a holding tank on the boat, and once the holding tank is full, we bring them back to the boat launch. And at the boat launch, we'll have the staff from Wolf Lake Fish Hatchery will be waiting for us, and they actually will spawn the fish right on the riverbank, and then we let them go. The procedure is mostly non-lethal. I'm not going to say we never, kill a fish inadvertently, but the idea is that we're going to let all these fish go after we spawn them, and they'll be there to take eggs the following year or for anglers to catch.
So how many eggs do you get out of these big females, and will they all end up as future walleye, or is there only a percentage of them that actually hatch?
Yeah, not all of them hatch, and that will dictate. Our target is about 500, I think, or 520 females, but that always changes because when the eggs get back to the hatchery, that's when they can kind of tell the quality of the eggs and how many we've lost. And, and not all the eggs survive. And so, we have to rely on them to tell us really, what they want in terms of, numbers of eggs. And, and if we need to do a few more because that particular batch wasn't good or, whatever reason.
So you use a hatchery system. You're not using rearing ponds at all?
No, we do use rearing ponds. I'm glad you brought that up because I should explain. So once we take the eggs on the riverbank, okay, then the hatchery folks take them back to the hatchery and they hatch them out. And so they become fry. And once they're fry, that's where they go to the rearing ponds, as you mentioned. So, we have a number of different rearing ponds around the state, and most of our walleye are in Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula in particular, are stocked as spring fingerlings. So they'll be in the ponds for about 6 weeks. Usually it's right at the beginning of June that they start coming out. And they're usually 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, if we're lucky. And we have found that with those fish, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, we get pretty good survival, and they do really well. And there are a few ponds that we work for what we call fall fingerlings. And so some places, like say for example, lakes that have a really strong panfish population, they might have a lot of predation on those smaller walleye. And so we do rear some of the walleye to what we call fall fingerling stage, which would be like 6-7 inches. And then we stock those in October-ish, and that will allow those fish to not get predated on by panfish. So those are the primary strategies. But, yes, we do use rearing ponds.
So your process is actually more effective than Mother Nature.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is, we identify lakes and rivers that don't get natural reproduction, that where Mother Nature is unable to provide natural fish. We typically don't stock walleye into lakes that get good natural reproduction. And so we're identifying those places that, maybe the habitat isn't right and the walleye can't do it on their own. And we know how popular walleye are for anglers. And so that's where we're trying to help Mother Nature out.
Boy, walleye really has in the last, several years now. It's become a really popular fish in Michigan, haven't they?
I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and I would say they've been a real popular fish. It's a very, I think if landowners had basically every lake wants walleye stocked in their lake. All the landowners, and so it's up to us to figure out which lakes are best, are going to provide a good fishery and have public access and all of those things. But yeah, walleye are extremely popular. A lot of people like to catch them, and lots of people like to eat them.
Mark, every year I hear rumors of your crews handling a new state record walleye, which would be 17.3 plus. The DNR shocked a new state record fish. Have you guys ever handled a new state record fish?
I have not. I haven't seen one that big. I've seen several over 14 pounds. I don't know that I've ever even seen an honest 15-pounder. Now, we have had some 15-pounders taken in recent years from Muskegon Lake by anglers. So, it certainly could happen. But I have not seen a 17-pounder, although I'll be looking this spring.
I didn't realize that 15-pounders had been taken out of Muskegon Lake.
Yeah. It's harder to tell now because we switched our master angler records to just inches. But yes, there have been some 15-pounders. They don't, you can't tell in the master angler records, but I've had anglers contact me, with fish that they kept because they wanted to mount it, and they were over 15 pounds. So, yes, it can be done.
Wow, that's crazy. I think you answered this earlier in the conversation, but do all of these eggs stay in Michigan? Do we trade any of these with other states?
No, not that I'm aware of. As far as I know, we do trade some steelhead. Steelhead eggs go to other states. Some of the salmon eggs do, but as far as I know, the walleye do not.
When your crews get up and running here, can people see what you're doing? Is there anywhere they can stand on the bank? Is it public access? Can they watch you guys doing this?
Great question. I'm glad you asked that. Absolutely, and we encourage that. So again, we're spawning. The Wolf Lake Hatchery crew will spawn the fish right on the boat launch at Pine Street access, and so feel free to come and watch us. We'll try to let people know when we're doing it. But yeah, absolutely. If you see us out there, come and stop and watch. If you go up by Croton Dam, you can get a good view of us doing the shocking, because we do work up there and then work down to the boat launch. But yeah, we love it when people come and hang out with us and talk to us and watch us do the spawning and get a chance to look at the fish and and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's a public process, and come check it out.
Well, it is a fascinating process. It's so cool to watch your crews handle these big, really huge, big spawn-laden females. I appreciate, Mark, what you and the crews are doing. Keep up the good work, and I will be in touch. We'll see how this goes this spring. All right?
Yeah. Hey, I just want to throw one shout out to some of the folks that help us with this too.
Real quick.
It isn't just us. West Michigan Walleye Club, and then a lot of people that help us raise the walleyes. A lot of walleye anglers help us, so we appreciate that.
Perfect, Mark, and I appreciate your time. Mark Tonello of the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. We'll take a break. When we come back, Matt Lefler from the Reese Adventure Club. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Carroll on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM and north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM as well. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Man, it's getting to be that time to start turning some dirt. Well, at least in the southern part of the state. It was before winter decided to come back. But it's going to be spring food plot planting time very soon. I recommend you check out Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Rich Grazan does a wonderful job. The website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Speaking of doing a wonderful job, I told you I was at the Reese Adventure Club annual fundraising dinner last week in Reese. I was so very impressed with the event and the group. Matt Lefler has been with the Reese Adventure Club forever, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Matt, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, it's a real pleasure. When I saw what you folks are about, I said, I got to get somebody on the club, from the club, on the air to talk about what you guys are doing. But basically, you have been formed to get kids in the outdoors?
Yeah, for sure, Mike. It all started, honestly, back in 1995. A fellow teacher, Bob Hanna, and Brian Turbush and myself started the Reese High School Out of Doors Club. We're all teachers, and we are passionate outdoorsmen, and we wanted to do something for within the school. So we provided this Out of Doors Club. It provided a niche for those kids that are passionate in the outdoors to gather and celebrate the outdoors. And then we, of course, organized multitude of activities. And what happened, Mike, is about 10 years after the club started, Brian Turbush is a little bit more adventuresome than me, and he wanted to do some crazy adventures, crazy stuff, like backpacking pictured rocks and going out to Isle Royal and taking kids and exposing them to some of the things that our Great Lakes state has to offer. Well, that required money. So 15 years ago, I assembled, myself and those two gentlemen assembled a team of outstanding volunteers, community volunteers, and we've been putting on that Reese Adventure Club banquet for 15 years now, generating an incredible amount of funds, as you noticed there, to do some crazy things for our local kids.
Well, and some of those things are providing scholarships to outdoor-related camps. And here's one thing I found very interesting. You buy hundreds of hunting licenses every year just to give to the kids.
Yeah. That was an idea inspired by Emma Russell, one of our founding board members. And essentially we partner up with our local hardware stores, one of them in Vassar, one, of course, in Reese, and one of them out in Carroll. And we donate, I guess I can tell you the numbers, we donate $1,500 to each one of those. That hardware store kicks in an extra $500. And so we give away 100 youth licenses per store for those three local communities. And I don't know if anybody else is cranking out that many free licenses, but it's been a win for our local communities for sure.
And I talked with some people who were students in the group who are now involved as adults in the group. That's got to be very rewarding. And as I look at this, I think, man, you guys have got it dialed in. You're doing something very special. And I wonder if other groups across the state couldn't learn from you guys, Matt.
Well, that's actually one of my motivations, honestly, to talking with you, Mike. We've got a pretty nice template here with the Out of Doors Club right in the public school, and there are so many local towns similar to our small Reese community that would very much support this. And you know as well as I do, we are in dire need of this. Our kids are very much not going outside and really want to do outdoor activities, but they need our adult leadership and our adults to make this thing happen. I was a teacher, and I'll be honest with you. I taught for 30 years at Reese High School. This was the most rewarding portion of my job. So I guess I'm calling out there to teachers and administrators in the school sector, and begging them to take this risk to start these out-of-doors clubs or to start conservation classes. That also is part of it as well. We've got some environmental classes that have been started around the state. I can name drop real quick. Ben Cooper from Valley Lutheran, Kevin Murray from Clare High School, Heather Middleton from Cass City High School, and then the person who took my position, Sam DePreckle from Reese High School. They're all doing fantastic jobs with classes. And then the next baby step would be to start a club and do some after-school things. And you will be surprised of how happy parents are that there is something after school that allows my son or daughter to get outdoors. And some of them are shooting sports, but not all of them.
Well,
there's no getting outside and doing a habitat work or habitat day.
There's no downside to this, Matt. Again, I was so impressed with what you folks are doing. I'm glad to give you a few minutes of airtime to promote what it is, and maybe other schools can do the same. People can find out more about the Reese Adventure Club on the Facebook page, the Reese Adventure Club on Facebook. Matt Lefler, again, congrats on a wonderful event. Congrats on 15 years of getting kids involved in the outdoors. Keep it up. We desperately need this these days. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, another group designed to promote the outdoors, the Michigan Wildlife Council. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM, 1380 AM, and north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY, 1450 AM. When I look around at society and the world today, I see something that looks different than what it did when I was a kid growing up. When I was a kid growing up, we all hunted and fished. Hunting, fishing, shooting, and trapping, and sports. That's what we did. Because I grew up in a part of the state where we'd done that for generations. The older I got, the more I realized, you know what? Not everybody has that same history, that same family history, that same background. So I think it's very, very important that we expose people to our way of life. And when the Michigan Wildlife Council came along with their Here for Generations campaign, by the way, the website here for mioutdoors.org, here for mioutdoors.org, and they said, we are going to promote hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping to folks who don't normally have that background. I said, I'm all in. I'm all in. So I've worked with them for the last several years, including Frankin Hayes. Frankin Hayes is a member of the Michigan Wildlife Council. He's an avid outdoorsman, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Chief, welcome back. How are you?
I'm great. How are you this morning, Mike?
I am absolutely wonderful. I always look forward to our conversations. Tell me what's going on in your world these days. Have you been out on the river yet?
No, the ice just cleared up. I'm looking to get out this weekend. Got a tournament, Battle of the Z, up on the Milwaukee River. So I am excited for the maiden trip this week.
I didn't realize you made it up to our neck of the woods, too.
You never know where you'll see me. If there's water, there's woods. I'm likely to be there.
Oh, and I'm learning that about you, and I appreciate that about you. Let's put on your Michigan Wildlife Council hat for a minute. How are things going there? You have recently did a little change in direction of the message. How is that being received?
It's being received exceptionally well. The goal, one of our main goals is to educate, inspire, and just foster the respect of those who play a role in the preservation of Michigan's wildlife legacy. So just really educating those, reintroducing the outdoors to others, we feel that we're making a lot of headway.
Is the goal to turn all of these people into active and avid hunters and anglers, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Again, whether it's quiet conservationists, as we call them, that may be out. They may enjoy bird watching. They may want to go on many of the trails that we have. And there's the whole ecosystem of outdoors and conservation is there. And the goal of this is to let everyone know they can play a part. And it does not necessarily mean harvesting wildlife.
It's been an interesting road for you folks. When you started, I think there's still only 2 wildlife councils in the country, Colorado and here in Michigan. Do you get a sense, Chief, that this is something that could be used and should be used in other states? Do people reach out to you guys and say, hey, how have you done this?
Absolutely. We believe here in Michigan that we are a model, and wildlife and enjoying the outdoors could be something that through councils like we have in other parts of the country can really get folks back out there and enjoying those family traditions or creating new family traditions of being hunters, fishermen, or fisherwomen, as well as just being outdoors and enjoying natural resources.
Well, you look at your beloved Detroit River walleye fishery. It's the premier urban walleye fishery in the country, and the number of people who are just strolling the riverbank there and see the boats out there and see you guys catching fish. I mean, that's a prime example of people who may not have an outdoor background, but being exposed to the resource, one of our wonderful resources, just by watching you guys.
Absolutely. And one thing that I love about the Detroit River fishery is that it is accessible to all. Not every waterway in the city, in the state, can be accessible by shore. And just for our shore fishermen and women to be a part of that, be able to enjoy it, it is amazing. And then we talk about those that gravitate or come here from different states. When we're out on the water and we're seeing MC numbers or boat registration from the Midwest, from North Dakota, from others that come here just for this. The Detroit River Walleye Run is one of Michigan's gems, and I'm so proud to introduce to others and allow them to experience it or share the experience with them here in the city of Detroit.
Well, Chief, I appreciate a couple of things. I told you, I come from a law enforcement family, so I appreciate your service. I appreciate your promotion of Detroit. Since my daughter moved down to that part of the state, I've spent more and more time in that part of the state, and actually a lot of time downtown as well. And what the rebirth of the city of Detroit is just so impressive and so wonderful. So thank you for your role in that. Thank you for your promotion of the outdoors, and thank you for your role on the Michigan Wildlife Council.
My pleasure.
Chief Frankin Hayes of the Michigan Wildlife Council, the website here for MIOutdoors.org, here for MIOutdoors.org. I say Chief, okay? Look him up online and you'll figure out who he is. And he actually said, is it right to call you Chief? He said, yeah, go ahead. Frankin Hayes, appreciate your time. We'll take a break here. When we come back in our second hour, Bob Hinds of Central Coast Angling, DNR wildlife biologist Brian Roell, talking about what this late winter snowstorm is doing to UP whitetails, and some springtime turkey talk in our third hour with Greg Abbas. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
More than 4 decades. Man, that's a long time. It is a long time. This is my 45th year in broadcasting. I started when I was 5 years old. Of course, I didn't do that. Thank you, my friends, for spending part of your weekend. If you're listening to the broadcast version of the show, and by the way, I always suggest the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM station. Those affiliates are the heart. They are the backbone of the Outdoor Magazine radio franchise. If you can't hear the show, all 3 hours of it, on your local station, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, it is nice to know that there's a podcast version of the show that is available. The podcast is exactly the same content as the radio show, the broadcast version of the radio show, but it's made available somewhere other than your local radio station. Where can you hear the podcast? You can hear it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on the Facebook page, and it's on probably every other podcast platform that you subscribe to, that you listen to. You can probably hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. I also do podcasts each month for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Pontoons, and Killer Food Plots, so keep an ear out for those as well. As you are hearing this show, it is now officially springtime. How's that working out for you? I laugh because what else can you do? The storm that came through Michigan here in the last week, the late winter snowstorm, absolutely epic. People are calling it it's easy to use cliches, right? The storm of a lifetime, the storm of a century, however you want to look at it. But I talked to my friends in the UP, and they say it's been very, very impressive. And it's changed a lot of plans. For example, Bob Hinds of Central Coast Angling was going to be on the water today as we're recording the show. He was going to be out there with our friends from our friends, the Grillo family from Michigan Brand Meats, and he says, we can't go fishing today. So it seems like a good time to talk to Avery on the radio show, and he's here now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Bob, welcome back. How have you been?
Good. How are you doing this morning?
Well, I'm doing good. Tell me what you're looking at now. You're in the Traverse City area. Have you been able to get out at all recently?
This has been the toughest March that I've ever had. I have not been on the water since Saturday, and the only thing was the saving grace Saturday was very blue sky, calm seas, and the warmth of the sun, just fishing. That is all. Yeah, there's been a lot of cancellations. I'm hopeful for tomorrow as I sit here looking out over West Grand Traverse Bay. I don't even know where all this ice came from. I mean, we were open just a few days ago. The storm hit. It's just made out of ice. There's ice all over out there. So, yeah, we're in trouble again.
What are you normally fishing for this time of year, Bob?
Right now I'm bouncing between burbot on Grand Traverse Bay and perch. Saturday we did a little bit of both, only perch fishing went incredibly well for us. We were done in 2 hours with our 3-man perch limit. So then I'm like, well, we can kind of take a ride down and hassle some burbot for a little while. So that was kind of a 2-for-1 day. But, most days I'm either fishing exclusively burbot or exclusively perch for the most part. I only had one client on Saturday, so it allowed me to, or one trip, I'd say, so it allowed me to knock out a little extra time. Things went well.
Well, I understand perch. I mean, everybody loves perch. It's one of the most popular fish in Michigan. Burbot, I don't know so much about. That's kind of a niche that you've carved out, isn't it?
Yeah. The burbot fishing has been a little bit tougher this year. Just 'cause of cold water, at least on Grand Traverse Bay, they've been really hard to find for me for some reason this year. We have seen a few fish, but nothing like compared to last year. We also had a lot, we were 6 degrees warmer on water temperature last year, and we didn't have a bay we had a lot different conditions last year on the bay and in years past than this year. So it's been a little bit of a curveball this year. I just think we're a little early in the game.
6 degrees is a big deal.
Oh yeah. Right now, the water temperature, the surface temp was 32.3 on both transducers the other day when I was on the bay on Saturday, and I'm sure it's, we've just had terrible conditions. As I sat here and watched it make ice during the storm, so, Yeah, we're way below average temperature at this point for the bay.
So tell me more about burbot, though. How did you discover that fishery, by the way?
Oh, gosh, I didn't really discover it at all. It's always been here. There are burbot in the bay, and there's a good amount of burbot in the bay. They are hard to find, just because they sit so tight to bottom. You have to be out there a lot to find them. You got to know kind of where they frequent. And I just put in a lot of time, like anything else. You get really good at golf if you spend a lot of time on the golf course. So I spent a lot of time on the water looking for burbot and fishing inland lakes. Torch, Burt, and Crystal Lake. They all have burbot in them. Lake Charlevoix has some burbot in them. I've not fished Lake Charlevoix personally for burbot, but everywhere else I have. And you just I took what I knew over there and then just started applying it to the bay and just kind of started looking into areas where, I figured they should be. And eventually I stumbled onto them and started putting a program together, but it didn't come easy.
Do you always find burbot on the bottom? Are they ever suspended?
Every once in a while I'll see a fish, lift up a little bit off bottom. When I say lift up a little bit, maybe 2-3 foot. But for most part, they're on the bottom. They go really, really incredibly slow, which is tough on the bay because the rougher it is, if you're out there in 2-3 foot waves on a rough day and you're using your, I primarily use my standard 2D sonar. Live scope really has never caught me any burbot. And then if I think it's, a burb down there or a group of them, I have a little aqua view I throw over the side of the boat and I go down there and kind of look at them first, or I'll tell my clients, go ahead, hey, put your jigs down there, and I'm going down at the same time with the aqua view, and then I can kind of watch what the fish are doing but yeah, that's basically the aqua view, I would say, is kind of what helped me really locate them and understand them on the bay.
Have you had a camera down there when you have clients' jigs and watch them react to the baits?
Yes, absolutely.
What's that like?
It's actually a very handy tool, believe it or not. They're kind of an interesting fish. The way their heads are, they're kind of shovel-shaped, kind of like a catfish, real flat head. And so they have to tilt sideways to eat that bait. You're constantly bouncing off the bottom, stirring the bottom up. And because they're laying on bottom, you have to be just a few inches on bottom. I tell people don't really fish, higher than a foot off them. And I've actually, being me, kind of guide as you will, I can tell people, hey, slow it down, slow your cadence down, because he's trying to bite it. But every time you're yanking so, you're jigging so fast or so tall, high on your jigs that he's actually missing it. Just slow it down. Oh, yep, I just saw him tilt. Yep, he's got it. And then you see him hook up. So, yeah, you can absolutely land the jig in there with that aqua view. It's been a great little accessory to have on the boat, especially I got 3 or 4 folks on the boat. Somebody is probably not hooking as many as everybody else, and that's when hey, let me drop the camera next to you and see what's going down there.
So are burbot? So they're a bottom structure fish. Are they a deep water fish? Do you find them in hundreds of feet of water or 30 feet of water?
Primarily right now, everywhere I'm looking, even on inland lakes, in the daytime, I'm fishing anywhere from like 95 to 75. In the evenings after dark, they will kind of slide up shallower, and you can get them up in 60 to 50 foot. I do not like working after dark, so all my trips take place during the daytime for burbot. So we're upstairs in those deeper waters. But that's about as shallow as we're gonna get, after dark. And the month of March they come up. Everybody knows they come up the shallowest to spawn. And that's what they're doing right now. They're spawning. So they're a little easier to target. Every once in a while you'll hear somebody get one trolling lake trout on Lake Michigan, or, trolling very deep. They require a lot less oxygen than a lake trout. So they live most of their life on bottom in very deep water.
Well, I'm fascinated by burbot. I want to talk with you more about those, Bob, but we got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Captain Bob Hinds of Central Coast Angling, his website, centralcoastangling.com. That's centralcoastangling.com. I first got turned on to the Cap by the Grillo guys from Michigan Brand Meat. They fish with Bob a lot, and they say he's a first-class guy. And every time I've talked with him on the show, I've learned a lot. So we'll talk more about burbot after the break. Then we'll also talk about these big jumbo perch. I mean, who doesn't like to catch jumbo perch? Again, Bob's website is centralcoastangling.com. That's centralcoastangling.com. Also in this hour, Brian Roell, DNR wildlife biologist, on how this late winter storm and the winter in general, how is that affecting UP deer? And in our third hour, we'll talk a little springtime turkey with Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Tawas, WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge. Just go to Escanaba, WCHT 600 AM, 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. That's the sound of my Rapid River knife locking back open. I just took it out of my pocket where it basically lives. If it's not this Rapid River knife, it's one of several other Rapid River knives that I own. I think a knife is a really valuable, useful tool that, you know, you can use hunting or fishing, or you just use around the house every day. I carry a knife every day and end up using it probably most days. So why not use a knife that's handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, comes with a lifetime guarantee. And if you really want to see something cool, stop by their showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River, and check it out. It's a really, really cool place. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. While you're online, my website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would encourage you also to take a look at CentralCoastAngling.com. CentralCoastAngling.com is the website of Bob Hinds, Captain Bob Hinds. He fishes the Traverse City area a lot. Bob, I got to go back to burbot here for a second before we move on to perch. I'm fascinated by these fish. Are they, I mean, how big do they get? Are they good fighting fish, or are they an eating fish?
They fight. They're definitely heavy. It's kind of like dragging in a 8-pound walleye trolling. You know, they're heavy. They're heavy fish. I wouldn't expect any drag screaming runs, maybe one or two, but nothing long. The shape of their body doesn't really, they're not built for, you know, sporting. It's more about the eating, I would say, and then the uniqueness of these fish. I am yet to eat a burbot any way that I wasn't like, wow, that's amazing. So
really,
very good, very similar to cod, but very sought after, very popular. I know the DNR, they just, April 1st is the official decrease in limit. You'll be allowed to keep 5 fish per person effective April 1st.
What is it?
That'll be new this year.
What is it? What was it before then?
Unlimited.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was unlimited. They've gained popularity in Michigan, and so they're just kind of preserve, you know, make sure that we don't get carried away, which is a great idea by the DNR. I'm glad that you know, they are paying a little attention to the fishery and protecting it for future generations. So I'm actually actively involved in a study right now with one of the fisheries commissions, and we've been out tagging burbot on Grand Traverse Bay with electronic tag. We're going to start really watching migration past the burbot on Lake Michigan. So not so much not so much, you know, just protecting the inland lake. They're really studying the Lake Michigan burbot population.
I would think one of the reasons burbot has gained such popularity is because of you. Yeah.
I've definitely, I've taken a lot of people out, and they've caught their first burbot with me. And a lot of people, they just want to get out there and see these fish and taste them and experience, you know, a little bit of a unique fishery that we offer right here. Are they,
forgive me for saying this, are they slimy like a pike?
No, they're not really slimy. Can be slimy, when I've witnessed them be slimy is kind of when we're ice fishing, and they get thrown on the ice, and they're like any other fish, you clean walleye after ice fishing, it can kind of be a little slimy and stuff. But no, right out of the gate, you get them in the live well and you pop the hook out of them, and it's not that they're slimy; it's that they're hard to hold on to because they're like a snake.
Where do you grab them?
Right, exactly. Where do you grab them? They're just kind of an awkward shaped fish. There's not really a lot of structure to them.
Well, let's turn our attention now to another one of your popular targets, perch. And I'm not just talking perch; I'm talking jumbo perch, right?
Yes, some big perch. We've been catching perch. We've had several master anglers already this spring. In the times that I've gotten out, I haven't gotten out a lot as it's, the 18th of March today. I should have been out at least a dozen times, but a lot of ice and whatnot has been causing some problems. And we have gotten out. I had a guy get one the other day, 15 and a quarter. I posted that to the Facebook page, and he was very excited about it. Said that was the biggest perch. I hear that a lot. These are the biggest perch I've ever seen in my life. So,
what is a master angler perch?
In the state of Ohio, it's 13 inches, but state of Michigan, we're 14 inches.
14 inches. My gosh. I've never seen I've never seen a perch that big. I've never seen a perch that big.
I have seen a lot of 14-inch perch in my day. I personally have caught a lot of 15-inch perch in my day. I wish I was more. I don't know. I fear one day I might look back and say, why didn't you mount all those 15-inch perch, Bob? Because you'd probably have a wall of 50 of them on the wall.
Wow.
I've caught a lot of 15-inch fish myself, and I'm just very, very blessed to understand the fishery and know where they're at and have multiple options of places to go to catch fish over 14 inches.
All right, so you're a step ahead of me. I was just going to ask you, what is the key to consistently catching jumbo perch as opposed to 7-8-inch perch?
Yeah, definitely knowing habitat, knowing where those fish will hold is a big, big part of where to catch 14-inch. Even a 12-inch perch is a very large perch. That's a great perch. I love 12-inch perch. Just knowing that they're going to be in a little bit deeper water, knowing that they're kind of a bigger fish, that they want to eat a little bit higher of a protein diet. So, minnow size has a lot to do with it. Depth of water. The other day, we were actually catching walleye amongst our perch. We do have a small walleye population. I see a lot of walleye in the month of March. And some are legal size, some are undersized. But, 78 to 90 feet, the walleye were mixed in with the perch the other day. School of perch was really big. So,
do you find jumbos and average size perch in the same school, or do they tend to segregate and congregate with their own size?
A little bit of both, especially in the spring. It's kind of like a melting pot, I would say, in the spring, just because of food and oxygen and everything, and the fact they are getting ready to spawn here in another 2 months or so up here. Our fish spawn kind of late in May, and so the fish they all get together in the springtime, in March. So whatever comes up. You might. The day the gentleman got the 15 and a quarter, we were catching 7 and 8-inch fish mixed in that school. It was a massive school that day, and all sizes were coming up. Now I can gear more trophy fish in the month of November and December just by fishing different depths in different areas. So I would say that if somebody was looking for a large perch, to contact me in late November and December, and we kind of target those fish then.
You say a massive school of fish. I'm trying to visualize what this looks like. Do you have a sense for it? Is it 100 yards across? Is that what a massive school is?
No, I wouldn't say it was 100 yards. The other day, my school was probably 20 foot thick, and it was as far as I could see on my live scope, probably 120 to 150 foot long. And
that's good size.
It was a pretty good sized school. I wasn't really moving the boat much. The guys kind of sat there and picked off their 3-man limit. We sorted through and pulled everything from 12 inchers to 8 inchers that day, and just it was fast as we could go. I don't think I ever really sat down on that charter. Just sat there and turned circles and unhooked fish and put new minnows on.
What's the minimum size you'll keep on your trips?
8 inches.
Which is still a nice perch.
Yeah, I mean, I eat a lot of perch myself personally, and my favorite ones are 8 to 10-inch fish. I don't want to cut pin bones out of a perch, and they also cook really consistently. That's my favorite part. If you have a 14-inch perch mixed in with a 7 or 8-inch perch or a 9-inch perch, your smaller fillet is going to cook really fast. So they cook very evenly, is what I've found. So either cook great big ones, or you just cook little, 8 to 9 inchers.
So your burbot trips are jigging trips. Your perch trips are basically jigging trips. Do you do any trolling trips, Bob?
I do a lot of Lake Michigan salmon trolling trips. I do some walleye trolling every once in a while, and then I've got, let's see, at 18th, I've got 11 days now. I leave for Detroit, and I come down and fish the Detroit River the entire month of April. So jigging on the Detroit River, and then come back in May and back to a little bit of walleye here, and then salmon around Memorial Day.
When did you start the Detroit River trips? That's kind of new for you, isn't it?
I was down there in 2018, 2019. I fished a little bit, and then this will be my third year consistently going down there in the month of April.
That's got to be a culture shock for you to go from this pristine, beautiful Northwest Michigan down to the dirtier, crowded waters of the Detroit River.
Crowded, yes. I like to say that I get all my desire to see other boaters, recreational boaters, and charter boats. I'm just like, wow, it's like driving down the freeway, but with boats. So I get that right out of my system all at once in 1 month, and I was just like, well, we got to look out for other boats. Oh, in the summertime when I'm out trolling the Manitou Islands on a Saturday, I might look out and see 6 or 7 other vessels. But yet, I kind of have to actually culture shock myself and be like, oh, there are other people that have boats and stuff. So, yeah, I'm very used to being alone up here.
Isn't it cool, though, that our state has such fisheries, such diverse fisheries that are absolutely world-class? I mean, we've got everything here if you like to fish.
We have probably the best state in the nation for fishing.
And that's why we both live here, Bob.
Yep. As much as I stare out the window and I watch all the snowfall and the ice on the bay right now, I do tell myself that warmer days are coming, and we're going to have about 80 days of summer. It's going to be amazing.
Just remember, we don't have hurricanes and we don't have alligators. Just keep telling yourself that.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Cap, right. Always appreciate our conversations.
Thank you, Mike.
Do you have openings? I mean, if people go to the website, centralcoastangling.com, can they book right on the web?
Yeah, the website is going through a little bit of construction right now. It's best to call me on my phone or reach out to me on the social medias. You can get my information and email me based off the website. I am fully booked for the month of March. I have some walleye stuff open in Detroit, and then perch and burbot I am booking for this coming fall and for next fall or next March.
Perfect.
So
Bob Hinds.
If you want burbot, book now.
Book now. Bob, I appreciate your time. Bob Hinds of Central Coast Angling, the website centralcoastangling.com, centralcoastangling.com. Burbot, perch, walleye, salmon. The guy fishes for everything, centralcoastangling.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears completely. We're going to check in with DNR wildlife biologist Brian Roell. How is the late winter and these big storms, how are they affecting the UP whitetail? We'll find out about that and more coming up on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of expensive hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set, snap on, zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern in less than a minute? If you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can help you out. Or if you're a saddle hunter, they make jackets specifically for saddle hunters. Check them out online at versaskins.com. Or go to Amazon.com and do a search for VersaSkins brand. VersaSkins, change your skin for the season you're in. Now, right now, as you are hearing this radio show, it is officially springtime, but it doesn't really feel like the springtime season, does it? Or maybe it does where you are in our state. Turning our attention now to the UP, DNR wildlife biologist Brian Roell is with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Brian, welcome back. How are you?
Oh, doing good. We finally dug out.
So, listen, you're a Youper. You're a lifelong Youper. Is this as bad as what it looked like downstate? Have you seen anything like this before?
I've seen some bad storms, but this one ranks right up there. The only thing that really saved us as far as humans go is it was not wet and heavy snow. So we didn't see the trees coming down and the associated power lines and the problems with moving wet, heavy snow. But with these high winds and the amount of snow, it was definitely one to remember.
or like to forget, one or the other.
Yeah.
All right, well, forget humans for a second. Let's talk about whitetails, or maybe wildlife in general. I feel like watching this from a distance, it's been a pretty rough winter in the UP, and then obviously this late season storm didn't help anything at all. How are the wildlife? How are the whitetails doing?
They are kind of at that tipping point right now in many areas of, particularly of the northern, the Lake Superior watershed kind of areas. I've been looking at some bone marrow from deer that were in wintering yards, as well as other areas where they may be getting fed and other stuff. And the ones in the yard are probably a week or two away from getting to that point where they're probably going to tip over. And this just amount of snow, and this was last week prior to the snow that I was seeing that. So when you throw on basically, 35 inches of snow on top of that, obviously it's not going to be very good for them. And really, what we are more concerned about is how long is this snow going to stay? Because that's really where the rubber meets the road with whitetail deer is when is this going to melt? So we're 82 days into the average over 12 inches of snow where we measure winter severity for whitetail deer. Right now, the average snow depth in the UP, and this is across the whole UP, is now 35 inches. So you get up in the north part, you're over 4 feet of snow on the level. So, the energy needed to move through that. Now, obviously, we had some melt and we got some crust and other things, and they developed trails in those yards and stuff. So, they try to make a go of it, but the energy expending now and what they're taking in is, negative. So they're really in that downhill decline, and where do they hit that cliff? That's going to be variable depending on wintering complex quality and how much longer this snow holds on.
You mentioned bone marrow. I'm not sure what role this plays. Why is this a factor you want to take a look at, Brian?
So it's the last place deer are going to start metabolizing fat reserves. And so you can look at the bone marrow inside the femur, and you can actually, there's a kind of a rubric that kind of tells you in color and condition where they are and how they're doing, health-wise. So I was looking at some fawns, the typical kind of puffy-faced fawns. And they're puffy-faced because they've lost the fat inside on their head, and so it turns the hair out and makes them look kind of puffy. So when they're getting to that point and you see bone marrow that kind of looks like red or raspberry jello, translucent, they're at the point of no return. Those deer are basically dead deer walking. They just haven't dropped yet. Even if you were to catch them and give them food, they just can't come back to that point. So what I was seeing a week ago was some red, kind of chalky, still had some waxy feel to it in our fawns, so they're well on their way to starvation, just before that kind of critical point. Some of the adult deer, I was seeing some fairly pink and fairly red stuff, but a little better condition. They're a little better able to move through the snow. They can compete a little better for food. So, like I said, what we're watching now is how long does this snow stay? Because if it runs well into mid-April, we're going to lose a lot of deer. We're already going to lose deer, that's a fact, but it really is how long does the snow hold on.
Brian, can I get you to hang tight through the break? I got a few more questions for you. Got a few more minutes?
Sure, no problem.
I appreciate that. We're talking with DNR wildlife biologist Brian Roell. The website for the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Brian mentioned wintertime feeding. When we come back, I want to talk more about that. The concept of if you feed deer corn in the wintertime, are you actually helping them or hurting them? And we'll see what else comes up, too, as we wrap up our conversation with Brian Roell in hour number 3, springtime turkey hunting with Greg Abbas, and then wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us in the Thumb, Sandusky, WMIC, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee, WTIQ, 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this segment works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can ask me a question that you want me to answer directly, or maybe something you want me to pass along to folks in the DNR, or something that maybe I have access to easier than you do. The best way to get those questions to me is to send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Now, occasionally, I take a little liberty with this segment, as I'm doing this week, and I make the Ask Avery segment, and Avery asking an expert directly a question. And we're talking with Brian Roell, DNR wildlife biologist, and I have a few more questions for Brian. Brian, appreciate your time this weekend. You mentioned in our first segment about feeding deer in the wintertime. Now, obviously, we can't do this here downstate. You can do it there in the UP. I have heard online reports, and you know what I think of online reports, but if you feed deer, you're actually not helping them, that you could be hurting them. Is that true? Corn, feed them corn?
It is a double-edged sword. So you have to remember, deer, their metabolisms change in the winter to a more woody browse. And if you were to take a deer, say today, and give them, dump a 5-gallon bucket of corn out there, that would probably kill the deer. It's just like anything. You can't eat a 5-gallon bucket of hamburgers without feeling pretty bad. But what actually happens is they can actually build up lactic acid. They just can't metabolize that amount of high-quality food that quickly with their digestive systems in the winter. Now, you can feed deer starting, in the fall, if you kind of feed them all along little bits of corn and those kinds of stuff, and they have limited access to it. The problem is if you just start feeding now, and those deer can be in trouble. So you have to look at what you're feeding. The pellets are a little better, but the deer often don't really like them all that much. They're going to prefer the corn or the silage or whatever it is. And then the other problem you have is, particularly for the young deer, is those adult does become quite protective of those feeding sites, and they often won't get the food. And your feeding site is probably not in the thick swamp that's going to give them some shelter from the wind and from the snow. So now you're bringing deer out into a habitat where they not necessarily have the cover they need, and now that little fawn isn't getting food, so it can be troublesome. And the last thing I'd like to add to that question is, often people will start in the fall, and it's kind of neat. I got, 3 or 4 deer that are coming to my yard. But then by midwinter, I have a dozen. By late winter, I have 30. It becomes expensive. So stopping now, even if it's expensive, can also have a real negative effect because those deer are pulled into an area and they're not able to go back to that natural yarding area just because they can't get there because of the snow if you are to stop.
I guess ideally the best option would be good old-fashioned deer yards, but they're not there in the number or the volume or the acreage that they were years ago.
They aren't there. The number and quality of those deer yards has been degraded over the years, and unfortunately, it's a slow process too. The state of Michigan only owns about 20% of the deer wintering complexes in the UP. So we don't have direct influence on their management. And with the species of trees that are very slow growing and prefer deer food, such as eastern hemlock and white cedar, it's very hard to recruit and grow those trees to the point where they are providing that shelter and food for those deer.
Yeah, it's not like putting in a food plot downstate. What you're talking about is years and years, and even if you started it now, the deer aren't going to feel the benefits for years to come.
No, when you're talking trees that can be 300-400 years old.
Ooh, geez.
It's something that we should have been attempting to protect years and years ago, and unfortunately, we just can't do it because the state of Michigan, the citizens of Michigan, don't have that ownership to protect those areas.
Well, Brian, I always appreciate your insight, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us this week on the show, and you and I will stay in touch.
No problem.
Brian Roell, DNR wildlife biologist with the Michigan DNR. The website for the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our third hour, enough wintertime talk. Let's talk about springtime a little bit. We are now less than a month away from the opener of Michigan's springtime turkey season. I got my tag the other day. Didn't have to apply this year. I got ZZ, Southern Michigan, private land. Starts April 18th, runs all the way through the month of May. That's wonderful, but that's coming up. We'll talk with Greg Abbas about springtime turkey hunting, and then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I think he has a walleye recipe this week, but it won't be too long before we're starting to talk about springtime turkey recipes as well.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. And welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on great radio stations across our great state of Michigan. Well, it's been an interesting time lately, hasn't it? I mean, as you're listening to this radio show, it is now officially springtime. Hasn't felt much like springtime lately, has it? But it's something to look forward to. And for me, springtime is primarily a turkey hunting season. I absolutely love turkey hunting. I don't pretend to be very good at it. I don't pretend to be an expert at it. But I'm telling you what, if you have not hunted turkeys in Michigan in the springtime, I would strongly encourage you to give it a try. You don't even have to take a bird. You don't have to harvest a bird. But I'll tell you what, the first time that you make a call for a bird and it responds, it gobbles you are probably going to be hooked. I have not done anything in the outdoors that allows me to have the interaction with the critters that turkey hunting does. It is a fascinating sport. It is a sport that wasn't available here in our state when I was a kid growing up, so I'd love to take advantage of it these days. There are a couple of people that I credit what little knowledge I have for turkey hunting, and one of them is especially Greg Abbas. Greg Abbas of Away Outdoors, awayhunting.com. This guy has been around the turkey hunting world in Michigan as long as I can remember. He's a 6-time Michigan turkey calling champ. They made so many wonderful turkey calls over the years. He's been a turkey hunting guide. Much of his success, in fact, I think all of it, on public land, which is not easy. So when Greg Abbas talks turkey, I listen. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Greg, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. The Lord let my eyes open this morning, so it's a good day.
It's a good day. So, you're not still guiding turkey hunters anymore, are you?
Nope. Just guide my daughter and my dad when he wants to go, and I'll go out and tinker with them myself, and just enjoy the outdoors. And springtime is my favorite time of year. And like you said, you hear that gobble, and boy, it's spring.
Oh.
And like you said, for those beginners, the first time they hear that gobble and he responds to your call, you are hooked.
Yeah, it is an addicting sport, and one that I've been doing for several years here now. And I tell you what, Greg, one of the most enjoyable hunts I ever had was last spring. I didn't take a bird last spring. I spent most of the season with my grandson Trent, who is a hardcore deer hunter, but he had never turkey hunted before. And he said, "Grandpa, I want to start turkey hunting." So our goal last spring was to get him a bird, and we did. And to watch him take his first bird, Greg, you know what I'm talking about. It was so rewarding.
Oh, it is. There's nothing like it. After you've taken some deer and some birds, and you take out one of the young hunters, whether grandchild or child, and to see that excitement that they have, and to see that knee shake, the voice chatter,
yeah.
There's nothing like it, and that's passing on the torch, to the new generation, and there's no other feeling that I enjoy more than that.
No, I agree. And it's interesting, too, when I talked with you off air when we set this up, I said, Greg, you're not guiding anymore. You're not doing the TV show anymore. You're doing invention consulting now, and you're doing your rocks and your stones. That's a big part of your business these days. I said, do you still consider yourself a turkey guy? And you said, Mike, I will always be a turkey guy.
Oh, for life. I mean, it's in the blood. And my first experience, and I'll tell you how I got hooked if you got a minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
My father took him and I out turkey hunting. It must have been the first year I was old enough to hunt, and he didn't know how to turkey hunt either. He had a 45 record and a box call, so he'd go to work, and I'd practice on that while he was at work. And then, he'd come home, he'd practice on it, and, he had that record. And so we go out to public land somewhere, and I didn't even have camouflage. I had a green jacket with yellow stripes on it, as I recall, a couple racing stripes. But anyways, he put me by a tree, and he says, sit here, and, he went behind me, and he did the calling, and all of a sudden, I hear this gobble, and this gobble's getting closer, and the gobble was so close, Mike, that I could hear the vibration of his voice. And it must have been just on the other side of the tree, so I figure, well, I don't see him. I'm going to get up and sneak to the next tree. Well, of course, never did see anything from that point or hear anything. But I was hooked from that point, and I was on a mission to get a turkey. And I learned, how to turkey hunt, and I had the thrill and honor of taking my dad out once I learned how to do it and getting him his first bird.
Oh, that's wonderful. Had you ever kept track in the years that you were guiding how many birds you got for your clients over the years?
No, I never even thought to do such a thing, but we always did well. And like you mentioned, it is public land, and I enjoy that challenge. And I got to have the challenge. And certainly they do that, especially after the first day, first couple days when the hunters get onto them, and when they relocate, and I got to find them again and do a whole bunch of scouting again, and I just love being in the outdoors and doing that.
Is targeting birds on state land, public land, is it a whole different scenario than private land birds?
Not initially. Initially, public or private, you got to find where they're roosting. And a lot of times they'll roost from fall in the same trees in the spring, but the more pressured they are, the less likely that is to be. But a lot of times they will, though. What's more important is locating the birds from spring to spring. If I locate a roost in the spring, I know that they're going to be there the next year, too, as long as I don't bump them from the roost. The thing with the state land, though, after that first week and they get pressured, a lot of times they do change that roost because every hunter is listening for that gobble, and a lot of inexperienced hunters will walk right up to the roost and scare the birds, and they don't come back. So I've got to find the secondary roost and where they're going next and their habits from there, and finding where their food sources are. And a key part is finding the rivers. They like roosting along the rivers in the tall trees or tall pines on a high ridge.
Well,
that's the two things I focus on most.
And let's go right back to the basics, and you just touched on this. The roost is where the birds spend the night. They don't stay on the ground. They spend the night up in trees. Is it usually, Greg, the biggest tree around? I mean, how do we find a roosting tree? How do we find the roost?
Again, you follow the rivers, and it's not necessarily the largest tree. You got to look for droppings, and it's a good idea to go online, if you've never turkey hunted before, or take in a seminar and find what the droppings look like. The droppings of a hen is more round, popcorn shape, whereas the dropping of a gobbler is more J and hook shape. So as I'm walking the sides of these rivers, the riverbanks, I'm looking for a pile of droppings, because if they wintered there, there's going to be a good pile. And their droppings do not splat like other birds. They'll break up, but they're pretty firm. So you'll actually see a pile. And knowing the difference between the hen and the gobbler droppings is going to tell you how many of each you're dealing with. So once I find those droppings, of course, I want to find out what direction are they going from there, and then that takes coming next morning and staying about 100 yards from the roost or more, and just listening for the gobbling activity to give me an indication of what direction they go when they come down from the roost, because they're going to follow that routine probably 80% of the time, and they're probably going to head for a food source. Will the jakes, the longbeards, and the hens all roost in the same tree, or are they just in the same area? Both. I've seen both. They'll not necessarily all in the same tree. I mean, there'll be a couple birds in the same tree sometimes, but they'll be spread out along that river, maybe 50 yards or so, if there's a good group of them, and not as far if there's a smaller group. So, again, finding that roost is key to success. And if you can't find the droppings, but you're in the area, you've seen the tracks, you've seen other sign, you've seen the dusting bowls, you're darn close, and you got the river right there, it's best to go out early in the morning in the preseason, before daylight, full camouflage, leave the calls at home. Don't practice on the birds you're going to hunt. That's a big
words of advice.
Mistake. Yeah. But just listen. The gobbler is going to gobble from the roost without you saying anything. Hang tight, Greg, and we'll follow up on this. I have so many more questions for you, including what does a turkey call sound like? So if you got any calls, I might ask you to demonstrate. We're talking with Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors, the website awayhunting.com, awayhunting.com, about the upcoming spring Michigan turkey season. Now, it might be a little too early to scout. The birds are going to change their patterns a little bit, but it's not too early to put yourself in the mindset and start making plans for this upcoming season.
You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. And look at and you can hear us in Tawas, WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. For more than 60 years, the folks at Reader Landscaping have been taking care of the needs of their customers. And those needs are, they're so broad-based. They're from maintenance to projects to pools. I mean, it's just across the board. For me, it ends up being maintenance and different projects. Now, there was a time when I had the guys from Reader do, mow my lawn and everything else. And I thought, well, you know what? That one's crazy because I could use the exercise. I'll do that. But the other stuff, the projects that I technically have the ability to do, I have the knowledge to do, but I'm thinking, do I want to spend the time on these anymore? No. I get in touch with John at Reader. I say, John, here's what I need to have done. He sends over a crew or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever young guys. They do it a lot easier than I do. They get it done a lot more quickly than I do, and I move on and do some hunting or fishing. It's a win-win all the way around. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. If you get a relationship going with Reader, you can get a project, what do we call it, a supervisor like I do with John, and he'll take care of everything. They've been doing it for 60 years, so that you know they're doing it right. readerlandscaping.com. Another guy, I don't think he's been doing this for 60 years, but Greg Abbas has been in the outdoor industry and an outdoor expert for a long, long time now. He got started, at least he came to the public attention, in my eye, as a turkey hunting guide, a turkey hunting caller, a turkey hunting expert. And these days, Greg still knows a lot about turkey hunting, that's for sure. Hey, Greg, as always, I appreciate your time. I consider you to be one of the truly good guys.
Well, likewise.
So let's talk before. Okay, do you have any turkey calls with you?
Of course.
Avery, that was a stupid question.
No, it wasn't stupid.
Let's talk about turkey calls for a minute, and then we'll talk about when to call and when not to call. But I want to hear, to get my blood flowing, a turkey hunting call from you, Greg Abbas.
All right. Let's do an excited hen.
When would you use that call?
When I'm trying to get a gobbler all fired up when he's in the distance. So that's telling him that I'm a hot hen, I don't have a guy with me, and I want to go out on a date. So that should get that gobbler fired up when he's in the distance. And as he gets closer, I'm going to tone it down. I'm not going to be as aggressive with the cutting. I might just throw in just a couple softer cuts, but a little more of the yelping as he gets closer.
Let's hear that.
And then I'll go quiet for a while and give him time to walk in. You don't want to carry on a conversation with a gobbler, because at some point he's going to, when he reaches that critical 100-yard mark, that's where you win or lose him. And people think they have to just keep calling loud, and his hearing's 4 times better. So you got to act like you're talking to a human at about 20 yards, when he's at 100. That's how much better his hearing is. So softer is better, less is better. Then once he reaches that critical 100-yard mark, I'm going to pull out the little push-button call with a volume control. I was previously using a slate call there. And then when he reaches that 100-yard mark, I'm going to switch over to the one-finger call there, and it does really nice purrs. That's a feeding call of a hen. It's a nice contentment sound to the gobbler, and just a couple calls like that. You don't want to carry on that conversation, and especially when he reaches 100 yards and in. If he pinpoints you, he's probably going to do that wide circle around you because he gets suspicious, and he's going to keep going, and you lose him. So better to, with that little push-button call, even though I can make any sound a hen turkey can make on any turkey call, this one excels 100 yards and in And that's where you win or lose the bird. So, I mean, no matter how good you are as a turkey caller with the mouth call, the box call, the slate call, these push-button calls are excellent. Our little turkey trooper here. And I like to point the call away from the gobbler. So if he's coming head on, I'm going to point the call behind me so I throw the voice further beyond and make him think I'm another 100 yards beyond. So when he comes into gun range, he hasn't even slowed down yet. He's trying to close the distance, and, he's been shot.
You talk about going quiet, though.
Do.
You talk about going quiet. To me, that is one of the hardest things for a beginning turkey hunter to do, because the back and forth is so rewarding. It's so exciting that you just want to keep doing it. But as you say, eventually, it's not in your best interest.
You're hunting longbeards on public land. You better not get too loud. These are the tactics to use. Now, private land with jakes, yeah, you know what? You can keep calling, and they're going to keep gobbling all the way to you. And, jakes, to me, they're the most fun. But, I love the thrill of that longbeard who's very smart and wily, and he's been called at, he's been shot at, and he's seen all kinds of box calls. He could tell you what brand you're using on public land. So, you just got to hone your own skills and outsmart them.
For our new turkey hunters, talk about jakes. What are they? How do they behave? And are they a legitimate target for a hunter?
Yeah, as long as they have a beard. That's the law in Michigan. And usually jakes have a small beard protruding from their chest, and they'll usually hang out with their, a couple brothers that hatched out with them the previous year. And they're kind of like teenagers. They're the first-year birds, so this is the first time that they're going through puberty, so to speak. So, they're really paying attention. They're starting to feel love for the first time, and when they hear that hen, these jakes, they'll all come in one group. They'll all gobble together. Their reactions are so quick, and they're a lot of fun, and they're actually very good eating.
If you know what you're listening for, if you have a little experience, though, you can usually tell a jake on the roost or a group of jakes coming in, right? They just behave differently. They gobble differently. They gobble not as full as a long beard. So it's all part of this learning process, isn't it?
Well, the big old gobbler, he could be a little deeper in his gobble. These guys might be just a tad higher pitch, but it doesn't mean they don't have a full gobble. They absolutely will. Some of them may have hatched late in the year, and maybe they're not as full. But for the most part, it's a gobble. But when you hear a series of gobbles, all at one time, that a lot of times they travel in the groups, where the big gobblers, they don't have to have all the boys with them. If there are a couple of gobblers that grew up with them, they're brothers, and now they're 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and they still hang together, there's only one who's still allowed to be the boss. The other guys can gobble, but only one guy can hook up with the hen.
You mentioned earlier, too, about setting up near the roost. To me, that was a very hard lesson learned, because when I found where the birds were roosting, I wanted to be close. In fact, there was one time I accidentally set up and they flew down into me. Though it was a very cool experience, it's not the way you're going to kill a bird by setting up too close to the roost, at least not routinely.
Right. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, especially if you accidentally, and I've done it too, you accidentally set up or they change trees on you, and the gobbler's right above you, and oh no, this isn't good. I mean, you can't even swat at a mosquito or blow it off your nose. You just got to hold still and hope for the best that they don't see you. I've had times where they've flown down and my hunter's gotten the bird, but I don't like that, because I just ruined it at the roosting area. I don't want to be at the roost. I want to be at least 100 to 125 yards from the roost, because if we blow it away from the roost, if we happen to scare him, he's still going to roost in the same tree. If you take a shot at him or you scare him at the roost, they may not come back.
And how do you know, once you find the roost, where do you set up in relationship to that roost? Which direction would you be?
Well, that's where your scouting comes in. So let's say we're on public land. A lot of times these birds are going to walk those 2 tracks. So they'll fly down, and let's say you're doing your scouting early in the morning before the season, and you hear the gobbling going in a certain direction. Let's say it's going off to the west from where the roost was, where you think the roost was. So now you walk over by the river where the group of trees where you think you pinpointed the roost. You find those droppings, and you pretty much have a good idea where they're roosting. Now you go back to that trail and look at their tracks. What direction are they traveling when they get off the roost? So I'm going to walk down that trail, maybe 100, 125 yards away, and I'm going to look for a nice tree that's maybe 20 yards off of that trail that's bigger than my outline that I'm going to set up on come time for the hunt. And when it comes time for the hunt, I'm going to already be in the direction that they normally travel as a habit. So I've got a lot working for me. I may not even have to call because they're already going to come in my direction, but that's the fun of it. I got to call.
Yeah, you have to.
I may give out a tree call when he's up in the roost just to confirm in his mind that, yes, there's a hen already in the direction you want to be. So usually it's just, I'll just do a soft one on this little push button. This is my favorite one for the tree yelp. So I may just give out just a couple yelps like that. That's just a hen waking up in the morning, and he's going to answer you. And don't keep calling. You don't want him to pinpoint you or attract coyotes. You know, the more you talk, you could attract them, and he can attract them, and then your hunt's ruined. So anyways, when he reaches the ground, he's probably coming your way. If he happens to be circling in a direction you don't like, then just give out a few purrs and let him know where you're at, and usually you can bring them in from there.
Greg,
really
listen, I got to
rainy days.
I got to take a break, but I have a lot more to talk about you. Can I offer you the coveted third segment?
Let's go for it.
I thought so. The coveted third with the guru of Michigan turkey hunting, Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors, the website awayhunting.com. That's awayhunting.com. I'll tell you what, I could talk turkey with Greg for the entire 3-hour show. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Muskegon on WKBZ. That's 1090 AM. You can hear us on the other side of the state, Saginaw. WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. And for these 3 hours, I call this corner of the building the Outdoor Magazine studio. Earlier in here was young Jonathan Dent. Now in here with me is, I wasn't going to say that, the experienced Charlie Rood. I treasure both of these guys. I value both of these guys. I consider them friends and a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, and I appreciate them. There's nobody out there, though, Charlie. The weather still is kind of, it's been a weather roller coaster, and right now there's nobody out there, and there's nobody yelling, Charlie, Charlie. They will. When the weather finally settles down and gets nice for good, Charlie, Charlie. Now, if Jonathan Dent is in this business for another 30 years, eventually they'll be chanting Jonathan. But so far they're not. So that's just the way it is, John. You just got to deal with it. Right now, talking with Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors, awayhunting.com, awayhunting.com, one of the most knowledgeable turkey hunters I know, a guy I have learned so very much from. Greg, so many things we could talk about. Let's talk about midday dusting bowls, because this one I put squarely on your shoulders. I learned this from you. Tell me about them and why they're a valuable tool for turkey hunters.
Oh, absolutely. The turkeys will come every day to dusting bowls to dust their feathers. and it's usually in late morning and early afternoon. So let's say you've hunted the morning and you were unsuccessful, and you probably got up early. You're tired too. In your scouting, that's why it's important to find the dusting bulls. Those are going to be off to the sides of the trails wherever there's sand. You're usually going to find them in tracks and feathers. What I like to do is set a hen decoy in a dusting bowl, and I'll set up 20, 25 yards away, and just give out some passive calling, just a few clucks and purrs and maybe a yelp every now and then. And don't say nothing for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Give them time, because when the sun's warm, they don't talk as much once that sun comes up and it gets warm. But they're still actively looking for hens. And besides, they are coming to the dusting bowls every day. And if you're unsuccessful in the morning, I suggest doing this and sitting down there for a little while, and just keep your eyes peeled, because they're more likely to sneak in on you. But it is an excellent tactic. They go to these every day, and you find a dusting bowl, and if you're patient enough, you will get a bird there.
What about decoys in general? Now, I know with the run-and-gun tactic that you used with your clients for so many years, maybe not as big a deal. My ambush setup that I use with a bow and out of a blind that's more like deer hunting, maybe decoys are a bigger factor there. What are your thoughts on decoys?
Love decoys. They don't work in every instance, but I think, too, a lot of people use them wrong. In fact, I know they do. They'll just go and set a decoy up and hodgepodge it in any direction. And it took me about 25 years to learn, why do decoys work sometimes and sometimes not? When should I use the Jake decoy or gobbler decoy? There's so much to think about here, but let's start with the gender of the decoy. So I love carrying 2 hen decoys. Very rarely will I use a Jake. If, in your instance, if you're hunting out of a bow blind and you've scouted out birds that come out into a field, it's could be an ideal situation for you, however, because that gobbler has earned those hens. He's fought to be the top gun, and when he sees a challenger out there, he's going to get upset. So what I would do in your instance, you're set up on a field where the gobblers are coming in there probably with a harem of hens, and if that's the case, I like to get a smaller, a shorter stake and put the hen decoy onto the ground, and the shorter stake is so she don't tip over. Then I'll get a Jake decoy and I'll put it just offset of her tail feathers to make it look like he's mounting her. And that will really upset a gobbler. And if he's the top gun, he's going to come in there and want to beat that guy up. No, they don't. They're going to beat up the competition. However, my favorite, I as a default carry 2 hen decoys. Much safer to use the hens. If I'm unsure if there's a dominant tom there, I will not pull him out, because if I bring in a longbeard and he's not the dominant one, my decoy can scare him away. A gobbler decoy or even a Jake decoy, because he might not be a tough guy and he remembers getting beat up. Much safer to go with 2 sexy hens than it is to pull out the Jake or the gobbler. As I mentioned earlier, he's got his time and place, and it's the instant I mentioned. Any other time, I will create, it's a technique I developed after many years of using decoys. Let's say I am running and gunning and there's a gobbler in the distance, or at least I know maybe they're going to come from a certain direction. I'm going to use a V setup. Picture a V. You are the pivot point of that V. And I'm going to put a hen decoy out to the left arm of the V and a decoy out to the right arm of that V, both of them facing me. When he comes in from the open end of that V, if I expect him to come from that direction, that's how I'm going to do my setup.
Greg, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I hear what you're saying. I've used this technique, the V technique, because you taught me, but I am out of time. I told you we could talk for the entire 3 hours. Sorry to cut you off. Appreciate your time. Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors, the website, awayhunting.com. That's awayhunting.com. We'll see if we can't get Greg back on before the season. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. I do certainly appreciate you taking time out from your schedule to listen to either the broadcast version of the show or the podcast version. Thank you. A lot of things vying for your time, your attention. The fact you're hearing my voice means a lot. It also means a lot to me that over the years I've had the ability to make so many great friends, like this hour, including Greg Abbas, who I just got off the phone with, and now wild game chef extraordinaire, Dixie Dave Minar. I'm telling you, Dave is a very interesting guy. He's a very humble guy. He's a sweetheart of a guy. The nicest guy you could ever ask to work with or be friends with. And when you get him in the kitchen, he is an absolute master. David, welcome back. How are you?
For the kind words, Mike.
Well, listen, it's easy to talk kind words about a kind man. What do you have for us this week, Dave?
Well, we got on page 29, we got the fish almondine. We sold this at the restaurant with walleye, and it was one of our big sellers when we made this for a special. So this is going to be for walleye. So you need about 8 to 10 ounces of fish per person. And this is a recipe for 4 portions: half a stick of butter or margarine, 1 juice of a lemon, half a cup of white wine, a couple tablespoons of chopped parsley, 1 to 1.5 cups of toasted almonds sliced. What you're going to do is buy the sliced almonds, and in the 350-degree oven on a cookie sheet, you're going to brown these up, and you want to toast them up nice and just golden brown, not too dark, because they have a really wonderful flavor once you brown them off like that. You need 2 beaten up eggs, flour to dredge, and olive oil to saute. And you're going to take some of this flour to dredge with, and you're going to mix it with a little bit of almonds. I'll explain that in just a second here. So in a blender, you're going to pulverize almost all the almonds, about 3/4 of the almonds, to a medium fine consistency, and then mix it with a half a cup of flour. If you're going to leave the skin on the fillets, remove all scales, but if not, you could skin it, and it works out just perfectly, same way. Remove the line of pin bones, dredge in flour, then the beaten up eggs, and then roll it in the almond flour mixture. But after you pulverize the almonds, you lose a lot of the volume that you had before you pulverize it. So in a small amount of olive oil, in a medium pan, not too hot, this will burn. You have to really be on top of it. So you want to place the fish skin side up, turn over when golden brown after maybe just a couple of minutes. Cover and cook slowly. So you don't want to burn this. Whatever you do, place the fish on warm plates, check it off, and you just want a golden brown. Thin fillets cook faster, I should say. Wipe the pan with a paper towel, add the juice of the lemon, the white wine, the butter, half the parsley, and reduce till thick and creamy. Spoon the sauce on plates and set the fish on top, and sprinkle with a couple of more of the toasted almonds and sprinkle with a little bit of parsley. This is a very elegant and beautiful dish, and you're going to just amaze your family when you make this. It just comes out so killer.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. I remember this. You mentioned whitefish. You mentioned walleye. What else could we use with this recipe, Dave?
You could use snapper. You could use sheep's head.
Your old buddy sheephead.
Right. Basically almost any of the saltwater fish. Mahi would go good. Grouper.
What about, and you've mentioned this before, but we've got a couple of minutes right here that we can talk more. How do you know when fish is done? Because, boy, underfish cook is, I hate it, and overfish cook, overcooked fish, you don't want that either.
Right. Well, it's just something after you cook fish for a while, you get the hang of it as to how it's done. If you push on it and it feels firm, then that fish is done. If it feels soft and spongy, because it hasn't cooked through yet, that's your kind of guideline. So you can take your finger and push down on it. This would be really good with salmon, too.
Oh, salmon, yeah. And will fish continue to cook after you take them off the fire, off the heat source?
Oh, yep. for about a minute or two because it's cooking through. So because what we've got this fish in the flour, then the beaten up eggs, and then with the olive oil in a medium pan, not too hot. So it's going to take a couple of minutes, and that's going to just about cook it through. So, and then when you put it on warm plates, it's going to continue cooking for about a minute or two.
Excellent.
And if you got whitefish or walleye, they're nice thin fillets, and they're going to cook through faster.
Sounds good, David. Appreciate it. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. You can find him at the King's Dish in Standish. Stop by there, check him out. Tell him you heard him on the radio show. Have him come out of the kitchen and say hi. Take a picture with Dave. He's an icon in the world of wild game cooking. My name is Mike Avery. This show is Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Wednesday Night Live coming up Wednesday, April 15th at the Lumberjack Restaurant, 989-343-0892 for reservations.